This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. President Reagan said today he is not satisfied with what Nicaragua calls its moves toward peace in Central America, and he ordered the CIA to begin airlifting weapons to the Contra rebels again. He did so as Contra leaders were announcing they have agreed to begin direct ceasefire talks with the Sandinista government. White House correspondent Bill Plant begins our report.
President Reagan, not content to wait for a vote on more military aid for the Contra rebels in Nicaragua, today notified the Congress he will immediately resume shipments of weapons. Airdrops of previously authorized military aid had been halted pending the outcome of last weekend's Central American summit. But the administration concluded that the Sandinistas have not done enough to comply with their peace agreement. The key issue, according to a White House statement, is whether Daniel Ortega is really committed to genuine democracy or just seeks the elimination of the Nicaraguan democratic resistance.
The Guatemala peace plan can succeed only if the Sandinistas have reason to compromise and institute democratic reforms. We must have the courage to stand behind those who continue to put their lives on the line for democracy in Nicaragua.
Mr. Reagan plans to ask for new military aid later this month, despite Ortega's recent promise to negotiate with the Contras. Opponents see his determination to send more bullets in the meantime as evidence of bad faith.
The administration has been trying to torpedo the peace process for a long time, and this is just one more effort along that line.
Mr. Reagan's decision to let the CIA resume shipments underscores his determination to keep the pressure on the Sandinistas. But it could accomplish something else. If the Congress votes no on new aid, then those shipments would mean many months' worth of bombs and bullets already stored in Contra warehouses. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
The father of the Central American peace plan said today that the administration's renewed drive to aid the Contras could throw a monkey wrench into the peace process.
President Ortega and the commandantes, if more aid is approved to the Contras, will reverse what they have done in the last few days.
The Sandinistas threw their own monkey wrench into the peace process by arresting opposition leaders even as Ortega was meeting with other presidents. That gives more ammunition to skeptics who say the Sandinistas are simply trying to buy time.
That the Sandinistas are not negotiating with us precisely because suddenly they have faith in us. I mean, it is precisely because they want to influence the decision of the U.S. Congress to cut aid.
The lifting of the state of emergency announced by President Ortega yesterday had been demanded by his critics for years. In Managua today, long gas lines testified to the lack of fuel and an economy bankrupted by the war.
We want to stop the war, and the continuation of funding for the Contra means more war, more death, and more destruction.
The next round of peace talks will begin in Costa Rica next week. That will come at about the same time that the Reagan administration sends its new request for aid to the Contras to Capitol Hill. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, San Jose.
Israel today banned shipments of food into the occupied Arab territories, and the Israeli army turned back a convoy bringing supplies to the Gaza Strip. Israeli Defense Minister Rabin said there is plenty of food in the stores, but the stores have been shut in a protest by Arab shopkeepers. The violent struggle in the Israeli-occupied territories has been going on for 40 days, and neither side is giving ground. Bob Simon reports from the troubled West Bank.
In Nablus today, Israelis opened fire on Palestinians. In Ramallah today, Israelis forced open Palestinian shops. For the past 6 weeks, the picture seemed clear. Israeli occupiers, Palestinian victims. To try to explain that to the family of Shlomo Sakal, an Israeli businessman whose throat was slit in Palestine Square in the city of Gaza on the 6th of December. Try to explain it to Azriel Barak, whose son and daughter-in-law were killed by Arabs on a visit to the West Bank in 1979.
Did you ever find out why the man murdered them?
Because they were Jews.
Barak and his wife built a memorial to their dead children, whose fate they believe reflected the destiny of all Jews.
The Jews here, we are victimized. I am a victim too.
2 weeks ago, an Israeli soldier chased a young rioter to where Mohammed Razwan's daughter was hanging laundry. She asked the soldier to leave the boy alone and paid for those words with her life.
He killed her for nothing. For nothing. She didn't do nothing.
Israelis and Palestinians both define themselves as victims, as peoples who've had a bad run-in with history and can count on nobody but themselves. And victims don't compromise. Both peoples lay their absolute claim to this land, at least in part, on the amount of suffering they've been through.
They can change my body, but they cannot change my determination.
Bassam Shaka was the fervently nationalistic Palestinian mayor of Nablus in 1980 when Israelis planted a bomb in his car which blew off both his legs.
He occupied by force and he wanted to kill.
We wanted to kill somebody? Did anybody want to do it? No. We were forced to do that, to keep order and peace.
I love her more than anything. I lost her just like that, just in 1 second. Why?
For the land. That's why people die here. For the land, which through their perspectives of persecution, Israelis and Palestinians claim as their own. Two compelling exclusive claims for one piece of land. Bob Simon, CBS News on the West Bank.
PLO leader Yasser Arafat turned up in Greece today. He talked with the Prime Minister about the crisis in the occupied territories. Arafat apparently is trying to drum up support outside the Arab world. As Doug Tennell reports from Cairo, Arab backing has not done much for the Palestinian cause.
The Arab world is responding to the turmoil in the occupied territories with a conditioned reflex. When it comes to the Palestinians, say you support them. Do little or nothing at all. Egypt's duty is diplomacy. Diplomats welcomed a delegation from the PLO in Cairo today. Syria's specialty is slogans. Ruling party officials have been reciting scores of them to audiences who have heard them all before. And Arabs who have been shooting at Palestinians in Lebanon announced they'd stop as a gesture of support for Palestinians in Israel.
The Arab world has walked away from the Palestinian question in its own fashion. It walked away while swearing eternal fidelity to the cause of the Palestinians.
How do you respond to those who say the Arab states have sold the Palestinians out and done nothing?
Okay, we tell them, no, you're wrong. We didn't do that in the past. We'll never do this in the future because we have no interest in that.
But Arab interests have often clashed with Palestinian ones, sometimes violently. King Hussein's response to the emergence of the PLO in Jordan set a precedent for the way Arabs have reacted to any sign of something new from Palestinians, crush what cannot be controlled. Something new may be emerging among Palestinians today.
The new generations of Palestinians don't have much faith on what other Arabs could offer them now. So I think they are now going to take the long and harder road themselves of battling daily for their rights.
Here in Egypt, a lot of young people sympathize with the Palestinians and they support them, but only to a point.
We had lost many people before, and I don't think any of the Egyptian youth or even Egyptians who are above 40 would like to lose any for that cause. We have lost enough.
But all the Arab efforts to give the Palestinian question a peaceful answer have ended in failure.
Now, who's to blame? We are all to blame. I am to blame too. We could have all done more to enhance the peace process.
When it comes to the Palestinians, the Arab states are almost certain to produce more meetings, more slogans, more ceasefires, but no solutions. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Cairo.
And still to come on the CBS Evening News, Bob Schieffer and Leslie Stahl on tough talk and some double talk in Iowa, and Bob McNamara at the big Western Stock Show, where a man can be all hat and no cap.
Examine for a moment the Oldsmobile Delta 88 sedan. Anti-lock braking and supplemental inflatable restraints are available. Independent rear suspension, front-wheel drive, all in one of the few automobiles that can still comfortably carry a family-sized family. And then some. The Oldsmobile Delta 88, the family car that didn't forget the family.
We love visiting America.
Hot chili, barbecued ribs, corn fritters.
But it's jolly good you have Kaopectate.
Nothing relieves diarrhea and calms cramps faster than Kaopectate tablet formula.
Kaopectate.
The diarrhea specialist.
Is your breath a little strong? Then have a Milk-Bone dog biscuit to help scrape away plaque and food particles to give you cleaner teeth, fresher breath. Get Milk-Bone because, naturally, every dog wants fresher breath.
If they could see you now out on a fun ship cruise, you're eating fancy food and doing what you choose. I'd like your friends back home to get a good look at the first-rate Carnival cruise that you took. All I can say is, wow, hey, look at where you are. What a fun ship, holy cow. They'd never believe it if your friends could see you now.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day cruise on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
A Supreme Court rebuff to Oliver North today. The justices rejected his challenge to the independent special prosecutor's criminal investigation of the secret sending of U.S. missiles to Iran and other strange happenings. The justices upheld a ruling that North is in contempt for refusing to submit samples of his handwriting to special prosecutor and criminal investigator Lawrence Walsh. Vice President George Bush recently has been taking some tough negative shots at fellow Republican Bob Dole. Tonight, in an Iowa speech, Dole fires back. Dole unloads one of his strongest criticisms yet on the secret sending of U.S. missiles to the Ayatollah, but he doesn't mention George Bush specifically by name. Says Dole, and I quote, "There's just no excuse. Those sales knocked into a cocked hat the credibility of the formal U.S. policy of no concessions to terrorists," unquote. And there's another note of negativity in the Republican presidential campaign tonight. Bob Schieffer reports that with time running short now before the Iowa caucuses and New Hampshire primary, here come the new attack videos of '88.
Just when the frontrunners had promised to cool their feud, one of the backrunners, Jack Kemp, lit into both today with new TV ads.
Washington insiders Bob Dole and George Bush want higher oil prices, and you'll pay the bill. Only Jack Kemp opposes higher oil prices.
A flat-out lie, says the Bush High Command. Bush favored lower prices.
When you're losing and when you're far behind and you haven't got anything nice to say about yourself, you try to say mean things about the other guy to get something going.
In another ad, the frontrunners are accused of trying to cut Social Security.
Determined to block this cut, Jack Kemp rushes to the White House and persuades President Reagan to stop this plan to cut Social Security. Social Security is preserved.
Oh, come on, snapped Dole.
They're getting their checks, and they're on time, and I'm very pleased to have helped save Social Security. He voted against it.
Kemp defended the ads.
I don't think it's a negative ad to elevate to the front of the consciousness of the voter the differences between Jack Kemp and George Bush or Bob Dole.
Kemp jumped a little in New Hampshire polls after accusing the frontrunners of being tax raisers, but pollsters say the tactics could backfire, since negative ads usually turn voters off in the long run. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Des Moines.
Now, beyond the new negativity, both Democratic and Republican candidates, for the most part, are still playing it upbeat about the economic future. They are nearly all talking about how they will reduce the deficit, balance the budget, but continue to spend for everything from defense to social programs, all with few, if any, new taxes. Leslie Stahl has been looking into what's behind all the blue smoke and mirrors.
I want to guarantee a job opportunity.
I want to lead a renaissance of quality in our schools.
We have to worry about the handicapped.
They say they want to cut the deficit, yet most of the candidates are out there promising new spending programs without telling how they'll pay for them. Calling for sacrifice in this campaign is out.
You're telling me that you lower the deficit by cutting interest rates, and you lower interest rates by cutting the deficit. Now, that's a puppy chasing its tail.
Paul Simon says he'll spend billions more to create jobs and provide long-term health care. Still, he promises to make the deficit disappear in 3 years with a plan to cut military spending and lower unemployment.
It's the hot fudge sundae diet. You eat all the hot fudge sundaes you want and you lose weight.
Carol Cox is president of the Bipartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget.
And the Simon program doesn't contain enough either of spending cuts or tax increases to solve the problem.
We need scholarships for young people.
Generally, the prescriptions are painless. Michael Dukakis wants to spend more for universal medical insurance and air traffic controllers. He says he won't have to raise taxes to pay for it.
The first thing I'd do would be to go out and collect every dime I could of the $110 billion in taxes owed that aren't being paid in this country.
Most economists say the Dukakis plan would bring in 1/10 what he claims.
We must cut expenditures and raise taxes.
Only 2 of the Democrats are defying the ghost of Walter Mondale, calling for substantial hikes in taxes. One is Bruce Babbitt at the bottom of the polls. The other, as of Saturday, is Gary Hart, who calls for taxes on Social Security and more.
Here's the dirty word of 1988, taxes.
Ironically, the Democrats are taking heat over their plans to reduce a deficit that ballooned under a Republican president. The Republicans, most of them vague on the subject, are getting off easy.
Give the president the line item veto and watch the deficit be brought down without raising taxes.
Bush says he would actually cut taxes, specifically slice the capital gains rate nearly in half, and still increase spending for education and AIDS research.
George Bush invented the phrase voodoo economics. I don't think that he can run on a program that apparently relies on the same kind of external economic good news to solve his problems and succeed.
Bob Dole actually talks about bitter medicine, proposing a spending freeze. But budget experts say that would require countless exceptions, and they wonder how it squares with Dole's call for new programs.
Let's say you're homeless tonight and it's below zero, and nobody will help. Somebody has to do it. It's got to be the government if nobody else.
Trying to have it both ways could open candidates to charges of voodoo.
The American people, frankly, don't care very much about those kinds of charges. They want the budget balanced, but at the same time they want increased services and increased spending, and they have never seen the contradiction between the two.
Now, with the economy strong, most of the candidates are being urged by their advisors to avoid spelling out tough solutions, to be as vague as possible. After all, the political system is not known for rewarding those who preach austerity and sacrifice. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, Des Moines.
To see how a bathroom gets this shiny clean, you have to go back to the beginning. To new formula Lysol Basin Tub and Tile Cleaner. Lysol has the power to cut through dirt and soap scum, and it disinfects. Try new fresh scent Lysol. It's how the shiniest bathrooms get their start.
This man once had a heart attack. Since then, his doctor prescribed exercise, the right foods, and aspirin. Studies show aspirin can help prevent second heart attacks.
He was always there when I needed him.
Ask your doctor how aspirin can help you.
I love you, Dad.
This message from Bayer, the wonder drug that works wonders.
When I'm stuffed up, I want relief fast.
Neosynephrine starts working in a neosecond.
A neosecond. I like that.
Today, nothing works faster to get you breathing.
Breathing. I like that.
Neosynephrine. Relief in a neosecond. Now, a special offer. Buy one Neosynephrine 12-hour spray, get a second one free.
What would you say if I made to you a promise to fill your world with flowers?
There's one sure way to send your flowers FTD. Just say, please send that FTD.
There has always been a big Mercedes. Automobiles that have inspired dreams. The Mercedes-Benz S-Class. Nothing less than the best of every big Mercedes there ever was.
The Soviet Union said today it will allow a small group of Israeli diplomats to visit Moscow for the first time since the two countries formally broke relations in 1967. The Soviet Foreign Ministry also said today that an American couple has been granted political asylum. Apparently, they hadn't been too successful in the United States. In the Soviet Union, a spokesman said they will be provided with jobs and a home. Richard Roth has the story of the American defectors.
According to his mother, Theodore Branch visited the Soviet embassy in Washington a year ago, almost as a joke, she said. Her unemployed son wanted to know more about life somewhere else. When Soviet authorities today announced that Branch, 43, and his 40-year-old wife Cheryl had been granted political asylum, his mother was not surprised.
It's not that I approve or disapprove. It's just, what else could he do?
he felt that he couldn't stay here because, you know, we're only living on Social Security. I think if they're happy over there, that's all I care.
Nor did the State Department express concern.
They're free to choose their place of residence. That's certainly true for these people like anyone else.
The couple, whom the Russians described as experts in mass communications, had worked at a small radio station in Central Florida until it went bankrupt in 1986. Co-workers remember them as unremarkable.
Just couldn't believe it, because they never expressed any political beliefs or complained about the U.S. or anything.
Short on cash and down on his luck, last year Branch came home to his parents in Erie, Pennsylvania, telling them he and his wife were going to Moscow on a group tour, possibly to stay.
I told her, if it's so good over there, why does millions want to get out?
His mother saw it differently.
I'd rather him be in a place where he can have food, clothing, and shelter than have him starve to death here.
It wasn't politics or ideology that made up Theodore Branch's mind, his mother believes. It was simply economics. Richard Roth, CBS News, Erie, Pennsylvania.
A multi-million-dollar settlement announced today in a 9-year-old sex discrimination lawsuit. The deal reportedly covers more than 1,000 women who applied for but were denied jobs as State Farm Insurance Company agents. That was in California from 1974 to 1987. The Federal Reserve Board today reported that the nation's factories, mines, and utilities ran at 82% of their capacity in December. That was the highest rate in almost 8 years. But the report comes as analysts expressed concern over an apparent reluctance by U.S. industry to build new factories. That wary attitude is laid to the recession of the early 80s and defeats at the hands of foreign competitors. But analysts warn that if American business doesn't expand, there will be further gains by overseas industries and a threat of new inflation here at home. The Japanese Finance Ministry today reported its trade surplus with the United States widened sharply to $4.9 billion for the month of December. That unwelcome word helped send stock prices tumbling on Wall Street.
I'm about to offend a lot of steak lovers by covering this beautiful sirloin with ketchup. You wouldn't do that, right? Yet you'd pour ketchup on a burger. And isn't that chopped steak? Try A1 steak sauce on your burger instead of ketchup. Its herbs and spices bring out the natural flavor of steaks. It makes hamburgers taste like steak burgers. So don't cover it, discover it with A1. And save the ketchup for your fries.
Today, hospitals have more medicines than ever to care for their patients. The one they choose most to relieve pain is Tylenol. Look, last year they dispensed Tylenol 10 times more than the leading aspirin and ibuprofen brands combined. With so many pain relievers to choose from, isn't it reassuring to know the pain reliever hospitals use most is Tylenol? That's a good reason for you and your family to use Tylenol too. Tylenol, the pain reliever hospitals use most.
This diver has a thin, powerful seal, but it's not on his mask. It's on his dentures. A seal so thin, so powerful, that more than any ordinary adhesive, Extra Hold Fast Teeth holds closer to real.
What could top an antacid that works great, that's sodium-free and calcium-rich? Great cherry taste. Cherry-flavored, calcium-rich Rolaids antacid. The relief you want, the taste you desire.
Snow piled up in 10-foot drifts over the plains today as storms linked to at least 5 deaths swept across Mississippi and Tennessee, spawning tornadoes that knocked one train off its tracks. Officials said there were no injuries when a twister hit an 11-car Illinois Central freight head-on in an overpass near Horn Lake, Tennessee. And now, in this season when politicians come to you hat in hand while passing the hat, even if they may be talking through their hats as they toss their hats in the ring, we bring you this story about an item of apparel you won't see just anywhere. It's a top piece of Americana. No need to keep it under your hat. Bob McNamara has the story, partner.
The cowboy look, the hat, the plaid shirt, thumbs in the belt, faded jeans, and boots. But above all, it's the hat.
The only time I don't wear a hat is when I go to church.
Yeah, I even go to bed with it sometimes.
You do?
Yeah.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding.
I'm not kidding. He never takes that hat off his head. Ever.
There are small ones and tall ones, rumpled up and Saturday night go-to-town kinds. Denver's National Western Stock Show has more hats than cattle.
Does that feel good?
Like it. You did a good job.
By the dozens a day, Gary Brumbaugh steams and creases and shapes them for the fussiest buckaroos. And they are finicky.
No, you don't want to mess with a cowboy's hat.
Why?
Well, it's a very personal thing.
Yeah, that looks good across there.
Low brims or brims up high. It's like they talk to each other, the nodding and bobbing, and get admired by the man below.
I know one thing that a hat does when you get to be my age, it helps you to cover up a thin head of hair.
But for real cowboys, even the Rexall Rangers, the drugstore kind, a hat is an attitude. Does his personality change when he puts on a hat?
Yes.
It does? How so?
More confidence.
Yeah.
More arrogant.
More arrogant?
He's arrogant and overbearing.
Sweethearts of the rodeo or riders in a pickup truck. Old-timers remember when having it made was having a hat.
Oh, yeah. That was one of my ambitions when I was a young man growing up and working, was to own a $100 pair of boots and a $50 hat.
But $50 hats are $250 now, and that's usually what separates the real cowboys from the drugstore kind. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Denver.
And finally, we're proudly throwing a new hat of our own into the ring tonight at 8/7 Central Time. It's called 48 Hours, a new weekly CBS News broadcast that has our correspondents and cameras focusing intently on the cutting edge of a major story over a period of 2 days and 2 nights. This is the real broadcast news. This evening, I'll be joined by CBS News colleagues for 48 hours at Dallas's Parkland Hospital, where life and death decisions are measured in split seconds. We hope you'll join us. Dan Rather. See you later.
You know, there's nothing like a winner. That's why I'm driving this, the Advanced Big Ford Pickup. America's best-selling pickup for 11 straight years. And I got more for my money with this special model. It cost me over $1,100 less than a comparably equipped Chevy. And I really go for Ford's advanced features, like multi-port fuel-injected engines and anti-lock rear brakes. Yeah, Ford. If you don't go with a proven winner, what are you going with?
Now get a $500 cash bonus from Ford on manual transmission F-Series pickups.
Apples have always been tempting, but never as tempting as this. Who could resist chunks of cinnamon sweet apples sitting on a puff of pastry swirled with icing? New apple sweet roll from Weight Watchers. Irresistible.
There are over 500,000 doctors in America, and they catch colds just like you. So, which cold medicine would doctors take for their own achy colds, with congestion and sneezing? In a nationwide survey for their own achy colds, more doctors said they take the formula in Tristan than the formulas in Sudafed, Actifed, and Dimetap combined.
I'm going to take what doctors would take. Wouldn't you?
Tristan, with the formula more doctors would take, tablets or caplets.
Why cook in oil, margarine, or butter? All-natural Pam adds only 1/10 the fat and calories and keeps food light and delicious. Pam Cooking Spray, because how you cook is as important as what you cook.
This is CBS.
Tonight on Eyewitness News, police continue to search for some key people who may provide some answers in the suicide of a former judge and the murder of his wife. Terrible weather for voting in the 5th Congressional District, and that may very well have an effect on how the candidates do. We'll have live reports coming up from campaign headquarters. And Ron Howes is keeping a very close eye on threats of bad weather to our area. We'll have the latest all ahead on Eyewitness News next.